Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
And today we want to continue answering some more questions, so we'll dive right into it.
Yeah, we've gotten the question a lot about what kind of sex education there was, if any, and kind of what that looked like for the kids in the Polygamist, the FLDS group that followed Warren Jeffs that Sam grew up in. So kind of I guess the first question is, how open to begin with was the community about anything sexual?
As a community, and like in the church meetings and the gatherings and that, it didn't seem like it was a topic that really was brought up ever. And it seemed to be, it seemed to be very almost secretive. Anything about sexuality in any shape or form just seemed to be very secretive in a way, yes.
Okay. Yep. And so for those of you who don't know, where they had homeschooled groups, in homeschool, like, did they like skip that section, or did they have like anatomy lessons at all? Like, did you learn the basics of anatomy and they just didn't go into sexuality, or?
Yes. So as far as what I remember growing up, I do remember in my homeschools books, anatomy books, that would talk about that and go into some of these topics, but I looked through those books on my own. Never necessarily a topic of discussion in the schools or anything like that. It was more of a, hey, these books are here. They wouldn't encourage us to go look through them necessarily, but I did go and look just out of curiosity and try to, figure out a little bit of what
everything was.
What everything was, what life's all about here, I guess. But anyway, but as far as in the schools and that, they didn't really have a topic like, okay, this is an anatomy class. Nothing like that I personally remember. And that would also be in my own homeschool. What was outside of that, I don't know. But I do have some stories that would kind of help answer some of those questions from people that came from outside of my family. So
yeah, we'll get to the stories because they're pretty funny. But so inside your home, how old were you when you learned what sex was?
Oh boy.
And did your parents ever have any kind of talk with you?
Never.
Okay, so no parental like sit down birds and bees talk at all.
Granted, I left when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So and because all of the marriages were arranged and all that, there wasn't supposed to be any type of sexual relation before marriage, and all of the marriages were arranged. So I assume they would have said something. Hopefully, they would have said something to me. If I would have gotten married out there, I would hope that they would say something. I don't know for sure.
But as a young man, obviously you're gonna be curious. So how old were you when you actually found out about like what sex was?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly. Early teens, I would say.
Okay, and how did you find out?
I found out just by other people. We didn't have the internet either, so it was like some through books and whatnot that was just kind of there, but mostly just talking amongst friends and other people, and hey, I heard this, oh, I know this, and just kind of put pieces together.
Put pieces together?
Yeah.
Okay, with that many women, I hadn't even thought about this question until just barely, but like with that many women being pregnant, as young kids, you guys never asked like how a baby was made, or did you ever ask like where a baby came from? Like, our little girl's 4 years old, and she keeps asking me, like, how does a baby come out?
Yeah.
And I'm just, so far I'm, like, trying to dance around the question because I feel like she's so young. But, like, at some point, like, weren't you curious with that many mothers pregnant? And
curious, yes. Did I ever ask the question? No.
Gotcha.
And I think one of the reasons for that is because, like you and I, we try to be very open with our children. Obviously, we don't go into details or conversations at this age. But we want to make sure that that they know we're always there for them. If they ever have any question, they come to us.
Yeah. I
didn't feel that way growing up. I would have felt very awkward asking that type of question to my parents, because it seemed like it was such a big no-no. No one talks about it. No one asks about it. It just seemed like it was a topic off of the table. So I never asked anything like that. No.
Yeah, our little girl's like too comfortable asking us anything, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say.
But I was curious. I did have those questions of, okay, well, how? But I will say though, because we were raised in a way that we were told that everything that happened was because God wanted it to happen. The marriages, who you were assigned to, everything was because that's what He wanted, and He had His I guess, power in every little detail of someone's life. So as a younger person, I assumed that once God assigned two people together, he would just then give them a baby.
Gotcha.
So I assumed as a young person that that's how that worked. That as soon as you were married, then voila, because it seemed like every time someone got married, they would have a baby. So I just assumed that that's how it worked. So they would just automatically give them a baby.
I feel like that's pretty common too. That's what I believed. You know, you hear when a mommy and a daddy love each other, then
right.
Boom,
I probably
babies.
believed that at an older age than you did, but yes, that's kind of the only thing I could, I guess, come up with. So,
yeah. Were you guys, I mean, even if it wasn't sexual topics, like, what did you know about, like, female reproduction? Like, did you know about periods, or, like, that your sisters were having them?
Nope.
Or anything to do with their anatomy?
I knew nothing about that, or at least nothing was talked about in the house. I think it was, once again, something that the mothers would tell my sisters, and just at a young age, they would just try to keep that all very
hidden,
personal and hidden, and it wasn't talked about. I never came across anything that would have made me wonder about that.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, it was just very, very well hidden. Yeah. And I never, as a young boy, never recall my sisters going through a lot of pain. So once again, they were just very good at hiding it, I guess.
Yeah.
Or if they were sick, I assumed it was because of, just a regular sickness of some, like a flu or something, or I don't know.
Not like PMS type things.
So I didn't really have any idea what was going on, no.
Okay, so at what point when you left was, like, the first time you experienced women, because, like, being open about things like that, like?
Oh, right away.
Yeah.
when I
I
left.
mean, like, how shocking was that? Was that, like, super shocking that, like, girls would talk about having cramps, or how they were feeling, or PMSing?
Yeah, and how open people were about it was very shocking. Yes, just like, oh, we're talking about this, because, like I said, I learned about things because of just talking amongst friends, and this guy heard this and this guy heard this, and so we were just kind of talking and piecing things together. But I never had any idea what was actually going on. Yeah.
Oh man.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll end on a story, because, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of what he did know. But
yeah. So I got a little sidetracked there because I hear a baby crying outside.
But he's with grandma, so he should be good.
We're good.
We should be good.
So did I answer that question?
Yes, you answered that question.
I got sidetracked. Okay.
But why don't you finish off by telling this story? So, some people have said, like, okay, obviously every family's different, right? Like, Sam's experience is different than other people's. But just to give an example of the lack of sex ed out there,
knowledge about it,
would be. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what I said, that I assumed that once you got married, you would be given a child, that God would say, voila, you're now married and now you can have a baby. So, well, I guess this was when I was still out there, this story I was told about, actually one of my neighbors. So they got married. One of my neighbor, he was a guy. He got married to one of the women out there, and they had been married for quite some time. I believe it was over a year, and they didn't have a baby. And so, of course, they were concerned and confused why they wouldn't have a baby. And so they went to the nurse there in Colorado City, a local nurse, and asked her, "Hey,
we're not able to have a baby.
We're not able to have a baby. What's going on? What's wrong with us? Why can't we have a baby?" And anyway, she said, "Well, she started asking generic questions like, oh, well, some people have a more difficult time," and just kind of started with the generic questions. And then she asked, "Well, have you guys been trying?" And they're like, "I mean, yeah, we want a baby really bad." And then she said, "Well, have you been having sex regularly to help the process along?" And they said, "Wait, what? What does that mean?" So they had no idea that you actually had to have sex in order to have a baby. They just assumed that like I said, once you got married, voila, the baby would appear. Yeah. So anyway,
so obviously his family's not the only one that didn't talk about things out there.
And surprisingly, obviously their parents didn't tell them anything when they got married. So.
Well, not only that, but I feel a little bit sad for them too, in the sense that, like, you're getting assigned to, right? Which means that there might not be any like sexual chemistry or anything
Right.
like that to begin
Beforehand,
with.
yeah.
So if you're living with someone and you're married to them for a full year and you haven't gotten to like that step yet, or like even have any desire to, then it kind of makes me feel bad for their
it
marriage
does make you
too.
feel very bad, but it doesn't surprise me because I grew up out there. You know, just because it wasn't marriage and that wasn't, oh, I fell in love with someone necessarily. It was okay, you are to be assigned to this person, and then a lot of times they wouldn't really have much of a more than a couple of days to get to know each other and just talk, you know, and then they were married. So it definitely wasn't, I don't know, it was all business.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds so sad.
That's what it seemed like, yeah.
But there's a little bit about what it was like growing up out there in Hilldale FLDS community, and their lack of sexual education and going into the real world and getting.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting coming out, moving out from there, and just being introduced to the openness of it, I guess, and for me it didn't take too long to be comfortable about talking about it and all that, but it was I didn't feel like I was very educated though, so it took me a while to pretend like I knew everything. And then I would just, you know, hear people talk and that until finally I was like, oh, okay, this is how it is now. So yeah, it was definitely quite the experience.
Yeah, if you guys want to hear more stories about what it was like for Sam growing up in polygamy, then please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
We will talk to you soon.